Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's my honor to present my friend, Kevin McGrath. He is a triple threat, as I think I put in the announcement to the campus. He is Lowell House poet at Harvard. He's also an associate in the Department of South Asian Studies. And he's also been working with the esteemed classicist Gregory Nagy for many, many years, I think almost 30, if not 30, on studies of Homeric poetry. And so it's our great honor to have him on Jacksonville University's campus. Oh, and he's also, he's a poet. He's going to give us a poetry reading. So thank you for coming. And the reading should last about 40 minutes? 45 minutes. So thank you, and please join me in welcoming Kevin McGrath.
Thank you, Eric, and good afternoon, friends, and thank you for being here today. Now, poetry readings in our culture, in our Western world, are not always easy, because the cognition of reading and the cognition of listening are two different activities, and to go from one to another is complex. Poetry is not how we speak, it's not how we write. It's much closer to how human beings think. And in that sense, it privileges the activity of metaphor. How we say one thing in terms of another. Erich walked into the room, the tiger has arrived. In order to understand these metaphors, we need to interpret, we need to have access to some kind of critical judgment. And if, in a course of a 45-minute poetry reading, you are presented with 200 metaphors, boom, 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 that is difficult. It makes one uncomfortable, including myself sometimes. There was a philosopher in the late 18th century called Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who argued that poetry preceded prose in terms of human experience, and that the information communicated by poetry was much more archaic than that communicated by prose. And Rousseau believed that in the origin of languages, say 100,000 years ago, that human beings didn't speak to each other, they sang to each other. They communicated rather like birds, or like people do in musical opera. That is, they communicated sonorously and tonally, but not melodiously. There's no melody involved there. And for me, if poetry is to be successful, it needs to recapitulate that condition of music, to approximate to that quality of song. Which is why when somebody like Dylan receives the Nobel Prize for poetry, I'm very happy, because this poet is taking lyric back to that condition of music. So let me read to you a few pieces just to open today and tune your ears, as it were. There we go. A bird flew to the air, the great chamber was empty. All the shadows had fled, and all the hours were in shadow. Shadows you were, dressed clearly like grain. Grain and thirst, the bird of conceivable space. There are four winds about the world that move within the human soul. First, the strange attraction going between a girl and boy. The second takes us on in time so that we might look back at the residence and procession of what is lost upon our way. The third is the emptiness that fills up our breathing days. As we go toward our source, its quietness makes us more still The final air is that of beauty, quick, ephemeral, always true. The breeze that makes substantial everything we do not know, song of what we cannot say. For a short time, an endless moment, two swans swimming down a river, or as two gold lions pace the shoreline of an empty coast. So too, in time, these present days, when the tissue of spring is torn, a world puts on its fiction and its lovely tinted new illusions. Crimson leopards walk at night beneath heavy, dripping trees, as optimism, like a bird or certitude, flies from the moon. May we always keep this rest as a constant in a world where marriages are only true, renewed each day with satisfaction, and the warm river never ends. As a shell that lies upon a lake broken into dust and time, or mist that dissipates in heat when white sun warms the ground, so rain falls upon a river as a slow current runs away, and human life evaporates, leaving but a few drops. How passion and affection disappear so lightly, as if there was no love and no mystery occurred. Just like an empty shell where coldness and cynicism lie curled up in a little space, the moral beauty of the world is dissolved by slight darkness. Yeah, a lot of money here. I wondered where it was. I like to watch you walk and count the rings I never see. Yet how unbearable it is not giving to the one we love. Deft, visceral, autonomous gifts of time as years dilate. In my despair, I visit paradise. None of the birds notice me. Swan, geese, heron, gull. Their world is out of time. Desperation drove me there beyond the present circles. I was pleased not to exist. They did not see my soul. Pleased to vanish in this way, disappearing inside heaven. Only love draws us back when we are only giving. I love to watch you walking, especially when you are alone. So let's track this idea of metaphor then, and see how far backwards we can take it. Because the truth of poetry is unlike the truth of the natural sciences, the truth of inference. It's unlike the truth of mathematical proof or demonstration. The truth of poetry concerns metaphor, talking about one thing in terms of something else, in terms of likeness. And in that sense, truth, in this case, is irrational. It's not deductive. It indicates a certain awareness for us, which is neither right nor wrong, but requires constant interpretation. And the more equivocal, the more ambivalent, the more nuanced a metaphor is, the more powerful the poet, because so much more meaning is compressed into that ambiguity. So let me read a few more pieces, just trying to explore this idea of metaphor as truth. The intrinsic stain of human life is more than a golden thread. All boys and girls know this loveless dust of the world, as they reach to hold a hand or catch an eye's submission. the unbearable human soul, clothed in a palpable body, craving another's touch, an oblivion of smooth warmth, and fluid of its softest tissue, bird of exquisite plumage. You once yielded all desire and promises, perpetual. Day is long and life is short, yet the pleasure of the soul demands constant renewal. Do we possess sufficient joy? All the children of the earth can smile and shake a finger. Young women might glance as the young men stare. But when the dust is blown and the clothes removed and the bird of love vanishes, what can the lifeless soul declare? What promises are heard then? So much water goes past, flowing downstream slowly. Rain, snow, flood, all make for a river's rising. Yet when we come to a bank, go out in our narrow boat, and bending down to taste how little we catch to drink. So much current flowing through earth's ancient arteries, turning to salt experience on reaching the great ocean. How little touches our lips, running out from fingers, yet born with a thirst we are always going toward water. Those who seek perfection in love, and in this are always failing, dispossessed, unsatisfied, blackened by what it is they imagine. Is it the experience of beauty, something tangible beyond life? Or is their vision amoral, unearthly, leading to this vast displeasure? Perfectly attuned and tranquil, caught in silence and dimension, discontented by bodies which do not calm their immense desire. Two horses lashed to a wheel, chasing, circulating darkness, escaping only drives them onward to repeat the same patrol. So, to carry on with this progress towards some understanding of metaphor, going backwards to where metaphor originates. There was a poet in the late 13th century in Italy, Dante, whom to me is this great cartographer of the vicissitudes of human passion, the vicissitudes of variety of human affection. And Dante described many, many kinds of love. Love of power, love of wealth, love of horses, love of sexuality, love of violence. Hundreds and hundreds of forms of metaphors of this kind of love. And it was for him that through this activity where love is a metaphor, that human consciousness becomes initiated or activated. And all these forms were, for Dante, a metaphor of one particular overriding kind of love, which he termed amor, A-M-O-R. And the last line of his poem is l'amor che muove il sole e l'altre stelle, the love which moves the sun and the other stars. And all these vicissitudes, varieties of human passion, which he describes, are metaphors of this one supernal, universal model. And for me, the genius of poetry hangs upon this activity where it generates these metaphors that are lucid and transparent. Cicadas, pigeons, and sound of bells. Suddenly the dawns of long ago return fresh and uncluttered. as if today were simply renewed and no one had ever gone. No one had vanished and love not lost its promised shape. No one descended into darkness, never to walk on earth again, or look the sun in the eyes and smile. Life passes but for the plea of children, voices of women, the prolix sea. Cicadas telling of just one story of how much we possess except for the consciousness of so much beauty. My daughter, for all her loveliness, in her light-filled, weightless way, laughs and listens to a music that no one else perceives. Her destiny is beyond me, yet she rests in my arms as we walk the grounds of night beneath an ingenuous saffron moon. Small grains of genius and love enter her gentle sanctuary. Unseen, they pause and settle there until they put out leaves. This is the secrecy of time, how immortality finds a place, how it is that truth adheres, becomes transmitted between souls. Unaware of the freight we bear, its indifference and monotony, our reckless life and impatience reveal an easy timelessness. We do not know what we convey of universal privacy, forms of beauty and of music, like the unison of love itself, are prescient with sunlight. As the sun enters the Lion, chromium dust filters evening. Time becomes like a dim water where we go without saying upon a glittering, reflective sea. The nerveless, unconscious ocean where life thinks of nothing, disembodied and pleasurable. Lust is simply visible and there is no efficacy. Where a soul leaves the body mourning the memory it departs, naked, without desire, as it hurtles through night and space towards unimaginable islands, where the sun never settles and there are only white birds, lion of human luminosity, going lightly among the hours beneath the eyelids of long day. How all of experience only deceives us with its air, glistening impermanence, duplicity of two worlds. We live as in a gateway like a watchman sleeping, as past and future travel in and out of a city. Into our open mouths so much water is flowing, never to be consumed, nor to allay our thirst. How wonderful is time! Gorgeous like a kingfisher, quick, brilliant, and gone before we think twice. In solitude we struggle with giants and armies, shadows we perceive, consider to be true. If the sun has a memory, let it now awaken us. You and I pretending we are going nowhere, and the city absolute. So let's continue taking this idea of metaphor backwards. We talked about the truth of poetry, of metaphor. We talked about how love initiates these kind of metaphors. We can go one step further back, and that is where death is the great criterion. That ultimate point from which everything becomes apparent, that terminus. And this kind of poetry we refer to as elegiac. Poetry that is founded upon a condition of loss which the poem substitutes for, or the expression of grief substitutes for. And for me, grief is our primary human condition, not love. Love is founded upon biology or physiology. grief is experiential. And in a Dantean sense, love is infinite, whereas grief is completely mortal. Let me just read you something. Any language, audio, visual, or plastic, marks the origin of all loss. That place where we are made to stand and where many of us only wait. There are few who travel that world. So let me read to you 4 pieces about such travelers who were poets whom I knew long ago in Greece. A rearing lion, like a magnet, draws the soul into itself. Years gather slowly round, touch their forehead to the earth. Once there was a life that tried to clarify the names and words, in a vision of a world to triumph with a simple point. Brazen light of morning sweeps the globe like a dancing place, a flat bright disk upon which creatures meet to kiss and part. Leopards rise up and sing now, panthers at night on monotone. Eagles bend their necks down, both in praise and mourning. Love will take us on and straight from struggle or what we destroy. Love that never shudders when dissolved by a voice in the fire. Hope was a hull made of leaves. Belief, the bubble in its compass. Transmitted, it told its story, suspended between waves. The lions disappear at once, their image hovering on the air. Invisible beauty gathers close, waiting for the next call when humanity cries out. To emulate the cry of love, its carnal wish inborn to life, what is it we should say that knows of no reply? With daring or with cynicism which blows through space, moving being, act, effect, or condition, every call. So many cattle of the soul, driven from a potter's wheel, onto a sea of burning white, raise their heads to speak. What will free us undo silence, catching us upon its round? Is there a love that will loosen pleasure, that will go beyond? My God, the terror of this place. Is there nothing we can say? Extinguished like a match we are, not to be repeated. Where is the boat? I do not see it. The banded moon is already there. Did you weep stepping aboard? Was the passage complicated? Are there lemon trees growing and white birds among the bells? Do you feel refreshed and strong, having shed your old worn skin? The orange blossom must smell sweet, erotic, fanatic, the leaves pungent. How is it when there is always light, sunless, sleepless, without change? Perhaps they were the oars I heard, slow locks squeaking and dripping, as I woke before dawn yesterday, and your house was all closed up. The luminous paramour who has no body, no name, and speaks no word, and knows how it is to be human, circling us when we are still quiet in the world. Morning, like an unseen raptor with its hard blade of shadow, falls on our deficient minutes and our wounds of indecision. Then the flames surround us, clear, lucid, invisible fire, as each quick day vanishes in haste as if chased by hawks. In this autumnal flamboyance, we are stripped of all clothing. Ingenious hands barely touch, blameless and sincere. Superhuman are those hours, with eyes gently closing. They judge us for our kindness and attention to their light. Exhilaration runs on the air, knowing there is only innocence, cruel and separating lovers, shining severely as they embrace. Beneath the heavenly universe, stars pause each vivid second. Their secrecy of truth is just a friend with whom we walk. Miraculous, like nothing on earth, this companion who takes us away with the moral beauty of courtship, deluding us of absence. For supernatural is this life, unspeakably loyal and so inviting, regardless of how we pretend we are here forever. All creation now observes this secret of true love. We enter the world but are prior to life, as sunlight enters each following day. So we can continue this trajectory, tracking metaphor backwards, step by step, to one more position, and that concerns how love of place and love of person are equivalent. For me, love of place is just as important as love of person. And as human beings moved out of Africa 100,000 years or so ago, they were simultaneously developing a capacity for language. So as they moved as pedestrians up towards the Mediterranean basin, east into Asia and across to the Americas and west into Europe, it was the presence and influence of topography, of terrain, of landscape, which influenced and composed our initial apprehension of metaphor. Ancient walking and human consciousness are completely engaged with each other. And this kind of poetry, which doesn't quite work in our secular, suburban, urban world, this kind of poetry is referred to as pastoral or idyllic, I-D-Y-L-L-I-C, or Georgic, which concerns how one works the land, or in terms of those early romantics with a capital R, who left their universities and the cities and went out into terrain where there were no roads and no people. And these were the romantic poets who described their experience in that landscape.